Welcome back to the Coaching Collective podcast. Today we are joined by Scott Goble and obviously Michael and Drew, as per usual. So obviously, first off, thank you for coming on, Scott. We really do appreciate it. You taking some time out. Obviously, beautiful timing because it's the end of the season, so it should be a little bit quieter for you. I'll try
Yeah,
to
hopefully, yeah.
coordinate
Yeah,
so you'd be a little bit quieter.
yeah,
Um,
no, well, I appreciate the invite, but it's never quieter. I always think the same thing. I'm always like,
I
oh, I
know,
can't
bro.
wait for the end of the season. I'll finally be able to relax, and then it's all the stresses of the reversing. All the people that you've told contact me after the season, we can connect then, and so I feel busier than ever post show. But I'm definitely happy to be here. So thank you for the invite.
Thank you. But yeah, if you want, just give us a little bit of an introduction of yourself. Tell us a little bit about you, about what you do, where you've come from, all that kind of stuff, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. I have been fascinated with muscle as long as I can possibly remember. Some of my earliest memories are, in fact, of muscle, like attending a fitness kinetics store when I was probably 5 or 6 with my mum to buy some ankle weights for my dad who'd had back surgery and he was told to do some resistance training. And I remember seeing posters of bodybuilders on the wall and pointing them out to my mum and saying like how awesome it was. And my mum saying, that's disgusting. I don't know why anyone would want to look like that. But I just remember thinking that is super cool. And I remember going to a Harlem Globetrotters game. I'm really dating myself. Again, I was probably 10 or 11. And I just saw the pictures of all these guys, and they all had these separated cap delts and, detail between their biceps and triceps. And I just remember being fascinated with it. I've always been fascinated with muscle. So it kind of formed my entire path in life because in high school, I was very interested in PE and biology. I went on to study exercise physiology at university with no intended career path other than the fact that I absolutely loved it, was fascinated by it. And I was very interested in weight training then. I've been training myself probably since the age of 12 in some capacity, but joined a gym when I was 14. So I just did that degree so I could get really good at building heaps of muscle and look super cool. And then that obviously led to working within the fitness industry. And I trained without really any intentions of competing for quite some time. I mean, when I was 14 or 15, I wanted to be Mr. Olympia. But then when I was 18 or 19, I was very interested in girls and alcohol and smoking cones and things of that nature. So I got a little sidetracked there. But then when I started to settle down again, the passion to compete came back. And I just thought, I'll do one show. This was when I was 28. So I'd been training in a commercial gym for 14 years. But I'll just do one show. I just need to tick this off, get some pictures, show the grandkids, say that I've done it. I'll put in all this effort. So I did that one show. I had some success, nothing amazing. Came second in the novice division, like it's nothing crazy. And thought, you know what, I love this. Like I enjoyed the challenge and just wanted to do it again. So I ended up competing every year for 11 straight years. Had some good success on the amateur level. Took out, open national titles, 4 of those, and multiple state titles. Never turned pro. Was always sort of on the brink, but the path to the pro card wasn't as clear back when I was competing. In fact, pro cards were probably only given away in 1 or 2 shows that I actually competed in. So the other ones, you win a national title and that's it. You go home. There's no overall. There's no pro card. It's just that's it in Australia. So obviously, once my competitive career came to an end, I needed other avenues to pursue this passion. And I'd already started coaching people. And basically, my profession was as a trainer and a coach at that point in time. And it just escalated dramatically post-competitive career because I was just much more focused and much more committed to my clientele. And the business has evolved from there. It's strange the way it's evolved. I was a super heavyweight bodybuilder. I always thought that I would be coaching other male bodybuilders, but now my business is probably 75 to 80% female athletes. I specialize in the less muscular divisions for whatever reason. It's just the way it's gone. And here we are today, coaching a whole bunch of bikini girls and bikini pros and having a fantastic time doing it.
I actually didn't know that you started competing so late as well at 28, because I've been following you for a very, very long time. Like your journey, like back in the day where I'm 30 now, so it would have been 10 years ago. And I remember you used to do like the meme YouTube videos with like Troy and stuff like that.
Yeah, look, 10 years ago was my last comp. 2015 was when I last got on stage. So my competitive run was from 2004 to 2015. And yeah, it was a great time. But I just stopped competing because from the age of, it was 38 to 39, I got worse rather than getting better. That last season, I didn't get better. I actually regressed a little bit just due to accumulation of injuries. And at that point, I was just like, I'm done. That was always my goal, to just be the best I could be. And if I felt like I couldn't beat my previous best, there was no point getting on stage. And it took me a few years probably to be at peace with that decision. But I feel it was definitely the right decision. I have no temptation to get back on stage these days.
Yeah, no, it's quite comforting to hear that too, because I competed at 24 for the first time, and I'm 30 this year. This is my second time, and I thought 30 was past it. And you sort of sit there like, how many years do I have left? How many years do I have left? Especially as priorities start to shift in. But I think sometimes you don't realize that that's kind of your prime's the early 30s as well.
Yeah, look, for a lot of guys, I would say the prime is mid 30s, maybe late 30s. Like I was at my best at 38. That was the best, and that was a pro qualifier, and I just happened to stand next to Josh Lenardowitz for that one. So it pulled a bad year to be at my all-time best. But every single time I go on a podcast and that comes up, I do like to mention that I got one first place vote off Josh Lenardowitz. So I figure, he had 2 9th places in the Olympia, so I would have probably been around 10th. That's my theory, and I'm sticking with it.
It's a good one. It's a good way to look at it. It is funny, you're right, how you said you were like a super heavyweight yourself, and you somehow like leaned into, I guess, the more bikini athlete side of things. How'd that sort of come about? Do you even know?
It just naturally evolved that way. I think it's my communication style. I think in my older years, and I've got the moniker of Gym Dad, just the way I communicate with people, I'm probably fairly empathetic, fairly calm, very patient. I think my greatest asset as a coach is to take a client who's in a heightened emotional state and calm them down and make them view things in a rational perspective. And I think that's a super valuable asset for a coach to have. And I think it works particularly well with female athletes. And I just had success. Like the turning point was 2021 when I had Jess Johnson turn pro at the IFBB Nationals, and Mel Carver won the pro show up on the Gold Coast. So I had one girl turn pro and one girl qualify for the Olympia in the same season in 2021. And at that point, I was just a bikini coach. So I literally had 100 inquiries within a week.
Really?
After that show. Yeah.
They are big wins, though. Yeah.
They're big wins, but it's funny because I've turned male physique guys pro. I've turned male bodybuilders pro. You barely get any referrals. Like literally, I was like, when Christian Caldwell turned pro, and I was like, yes, I've hit the jackpot. A super heavyweight male bodybuilder. He's turned pro and a great lineup. He's beaten some really good guys, and I thought, this is it. Probably got 1 or 2 inquiries based off of that.
It's funny you say that, because I also notice that we get a lot more traction from the female competitors who do really well compared to the males. And I think it just becomes a little bit more of an ego-based thing as well.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah, guys are definitely a little bit harder to convert. I want to use the word convert, but there's definitely a better word that I could be using, where females are more likely to follow the trend and trust the perception or experience of like a friend, for example. Like they're more likely to trust a referral is probably what I mean, where a guy needs to be pressed up to trust that referral.
Yeah. I've never really concerned myself with what the reasoning is. I always sort of assumed the bikini girls just had more reach.
Yeah.
But look, I'm happy either way. I love coaching the girls. I don't know. I've fallen into the role of gym dad quite seamlessly, and I like it here.
It's fun. It's quite. I think what I like most about bikini and men's physique in particular is that you do need a deeper understanding of the expectations to excel in it, both as an athlete and as a coach, or even just to enjoy it as a spectator. Because my partner is obviously competes in bikini and is quite into it. And my perception of what I thought it took to do really well in bikini is so different 12 months ago to what it is today. And likewise with men's physique. And you do see people jumping into these categories, or coaches coaching these categories with the expectation of doing really well, but they don't realize how far off they are. And I think that you niching into that would help, because that understanding is there too.
Yeah, you've got to understand the bikini criteria for sure.
Yeah.
And it does continue to evolve. Like you said, the look has changed significantly over the last 4 or 5 years. Jess Johnson turning pro back in 2021, she just was not of the level of condition. She had deeply carved abs. Like there's just many reasons why she wouldn't turn pro now. But back then she was perfect. And this year, I guess Kira Longmuir was close to perfect, and she took out the pro card in season A. So, yeah, as long as you can adapt and stay on top of what the criteria is and how the sport's evolving, you should be able to continue to, bring the clients in on point.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's never changing as well. I feel like it's just like I feel like it just changes year to year too, sort of what they're looking for. Just yeah, I feel like it gets a little bit challenging, but like
it's
I don't know.
challenging if you're not in the loop with it.
Yeah, I feel like
And
you've
if
got
you're
to be
not passionate
able to,
about it, yeah.
and you've got to care about the actual division itself too, which is more than anything. But I guess that's sort of like even like you were saying how you're like falling into that gym dad role. I guess it sort of falls into the one of the topics I want to talk about, which is like that coach client relationship as well, and how important I guess do you find it is for driving that result more than anything?
Um, Look, I hate to overstate the value of the coach, because ultimately your success is largely determined by how talented and how working your clients are. And there is a self-perpetuating component to my success in the bikini division, in that I coach winners, and then people with enormous potential that are on the brink of winning then apply for coaching with me. So
Yeah.
I've got a head start on everyone else that isn't established within that division. Because I've got the runs on the board, I guess, and people can see that. So I naturally attract talented clients, and they're the ones that generally win. And I would like to think they would do incredibly well regardless of who was coaching them, assuming they had reasonable acumen. But that coach client relationship is critical. Like your clients, they have to respect you. They have to believe in you, and you have to sort of create that. I guess you need to establish the trust and establish the respect. And I think you do that by being incredibly professional and on point with your communication and all those sorts of things. And I get it all the time with prospective clients approaching me for coaching, and they'll say, my coach just hasn't got back to me, or something like that.
Yeah.
To me, that just says that coach just doesn't care enough. Literally, I mean, that is the message they are sending if they're not getting back to you. So I really feel like it's not that difficult to establish a good relationship if you are incredibly professional and very passionate. And I say this because I've got coaches that work underneath me. We work hard at all times, and that's why we can ask our clients to work hard. But if we're not backing up, if we're not following through with the things we're going to say we're going to do, why would the client do that? So I try and lead by example. I try and follow up and do everything I say I'm going to do for a client, and do my absolute best and be incredibly professional. And I think that builds that respect and trust, and that's more likely to lead to better adherence, which is more likely to lead to better outcomes and everything else. I'm also a big believer in explaining the why behind doing things. I'm not a coach that says do this because I told you to. I'll be like, do this because of this, this, and this. If you really don't want to do this, these are the potential alternatives, but I feel like this is the most advantageous way to go about it for these reasons. And then they're more likely to do it. Whereas if you're just a dictator that just says, do this, do that, they're probably going to be getting outside information, because it's almost impossible not to. And if that outside information has a better why to it, they're going to start to question your processes. So I think it's important to always explain to your clients why you want them to do something, as well as what to do.
And at the end of the day as well, you want them to walk away, and especially when we start, we're not going to delve into this, but if you were delving into the conversation of PEDs, for example, as well, you want to know that the individual is making their own informed decision. They're not just going on the back of something that you've just said blindly, because the amount of times that happens and you recognize an individual has no idea what they're doing because they don't even want to know is ridiculous. Or they've come from coaches who have just said, do this, this, and this because of this. And then they'll tell you, oh, but I did this because supposedly it does this. And it's like, no, but to raise that clarity around the justification, that's something we're really firm on as well. I want a client to walk away if they eventually conclude a coaching process I want them to, as much as I want them to walk away saying he was a fantastic coach and we achieved what we want to achieve, I feel like to me in particular, it's a bigger compliment for them to say, I learned so much from working with him that I can continue to apply.
Yeah, and stop.
And that just makes such a more concise process. And you raise the concept of professionalism too. I feel like it's understated the importance of just professionalism as if you are conducting a business and conducting a high level service as well. And it's if you don't have that level of professionalism and that structure around your delivery, it does start to reflect in the outcomes of the individual.
100%. And
Yeah.
it's an easy way to distinguish yourself within this industry by being professional, which is,
I was going to say that. I'm like, I don't want to bash too much, but I 100% agree. Yeah.
man, it's amazing how
Yeah.
often people compliment me on, things that I think are just stock standard, like response times to
Yeah, I was
check-ins.
going to say, thanks for replying to my message.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's
3 days
not
late
hard.
check-ins. Like I never understood how check-ins got returned straight away. Like, for example, for my comp prep clients, I would check in at 5 a.m. that have check-ins back by 6 a.m. And I've heard cases where it's like, I've been coached by people where I get a check-in 48 hours later. And it's like, yeah, check-in second time this week on Friday. And it's like, it's fucking Thursday already. Yeah. Yeah. I've had a case where he would, this is a very old coach who you wouldn't know and no one would know, but 48 hours for the first check-in of the week, which is a Monday. And then on the Thursday, I implemented. Then on the Friday, he made further changes. And I'm just like, mate, we just made the changes yesterday.
You're doing this for a day.
And it's like, oh, I didn't realize how close it was. And it's like, yeah, I know you didn't, mate. But that's not uncommon. At the time when I was receiving that, I thought I was the one getting the short end of the stick, but that happens all the time.
Yeah, it really does. And I don't know. Yeah, it doesn't need to. And it's an easy way if you're in the industry to make yourself stand out by just caring and being professional. So yeah, it's a good place to start.
Yeah, no, 100% agree.
Yeah, it makes it so hard. I feel like it's like and it's just funny as well because like the evolution of, I guess, within coaching to like every man and his dog's becoming a coach these days as well. Like whether it's bodybuilding or just lifestyle, and it's just like the little things. And I feel like as well, even as a, say, like an athlete or as a client yourself, having a coach, if you come from a bad experience with a coach, I feel like as a coach yourself, you can learn so much from that. Like just understanding that like poor response time or poor like getting check-ins back or just like not explaining the whys behind things. And I feel like even for me, learning things or just hearing from other people having bad experiences with coaches, I sit there and it's like, it's good for me because I sit there and like, I can never be that or I never will be like that. And it's like because of hearing these things. And it's just
occasionally you get little tendencies creep into your service and you're like, what the fuck am I doing?
Like, what am I doing?
It's like, oh God, I applied to them 3 hours too late or something like that. Or like I forgot to do this and you start to, it's good to keep yourself accountable with it too. But yeah, like I even think James did touch on coaching's evolved heaps across the last 10 years. Because I remember back in the day, if you wanted to get coached, you'd be coached by some big meathead bodybuilder in the gym who would just thrash you with supplements. It would be BCAAs, glutamine. You'd spend $300 on like the over-the-counter subs, and you'd just get like a PDF if you buy it. It'd be like, yeah, touch base in a month. You'd send them a text. You'd send them your check-in photos via text, and then they just respond back, yep, sweet, no changes. Now you can get that whole encapsulated service and feel like you're a part of something. I'm sure that you've been around that as well. I don't know if the boys would have been. Obviously showing the age a little bit more here.
Man, my initial foray into bodybuilding, I couldn't really say I had a coach. Like, in fact, I would say I was self-coached for all my shows. Although I had advisors that would look over me every now and then, there was no written out meal plan or anything like that. It was literally, I trained at Spartan's Gym. Don Marnie was the owner of Spartan's Gym. He'd won Masters Mr. World and he'd placed in all these great international shows, taken out multiple national titles. And I would literally pose for him every now and then if I happened to catch him. And he would say things like, drop your carbs. I'd be like, okay, how much? He'd be like, just halve them. But okay, cool. Well, all right, I'll have them, I'd pose for him next week. He'd be like, how much cardio are you doing? I do, half an hour every second day. I don't do half an hour a day. Cool. There was literally, there was no structure or there was certainly no fatigue mitigation or there was certainly no refeeds. That was for the week, so it was very, very different, and you were largely relying on yourself, which I sort of wore as a badge of honor because I thought if I can really coach myself, I'll be a fantastic coach for other people. That turned out to be a complete and utter fallacy. I was a terrible coach for other people because I thought everyone would approach it the same way I would, and I thought everyone was going to be as committed as I was and adherent as I was, because I would never think of cheating on a diet, and I was willing to do anything to win. There were times where I was on 1,200 calories and 3 hours of cardio a day as 110
that was normal back in the day.
I was a 110 kilo bodybuilder, and that's what I fell behind in my prep, and that's what needed to be done to catch up, and I was willing to do that. I felt like complete and utter death at all times, but it got the job done. So I was I would say a failed coach when I was trying to coach people, and I was a competitor at the time. It wasn't really until I stopped competing myself, learned that there were different personality types, and learned that empathy certainly plays a role, and that you're dealing with human beings and not robots, because I was very robotic in my approach, and I became a much better coach as a result. So it's interesting that the personal experience, it rarely translates to the masses, I would suggest.
It's funny you say that too, because I do feel like my personal development as a coach, all the times in my life where I've made the most development are the times where I'm not actively trying to bodybuild or actively trying to pursue physique goals. Because I've had a few, we'll talk about this in plenty of podcasts, few periods where I've sort of just thrown it in and been like, I'm not doing this anymore. It's actually funny because this probably a year ago was the first time where I was like, nah, I'm doing this. Probably a year and a half. But before that, those down times is where I coach the best, especially because you're so inclined to, as much as you want to, especially early days now, obviously have a different bearing on it, but it's very easy to start to transfer what you're doing into your clients without even realizing it. Like, for example, I remember it would have been 2 months ago, my coach gave me katana extensions, the tricep extensions like that.
Oh, yeah.
And there would have been a 2-week period there where every program I did, I'm like, katana extensions. And then I started to think, fuck, why are you giving these to these cunts? Like, it's just because you like it. It is a great movement. But then I had people complaining it's too hard to set up. I'd be like, nah, it's the best. And then I'm just like, no, take a step back, mate. You're in this prep brain right now. But it's just so easy to do that. And you got to think, if you're in that hole, especially if you're in a 1,200 calorie, 3 hours cardio a day hole, and you're trying to simultaneously coach a client and prep them, you're not going to hesitate in absolutely hammering that client.
No, absolutely.
And without second thought. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and I don't know. I was just, when I was competing, I was in a competitor's mindset, and a competitor's mindset needs to be somewhat selfish, I guess.
Yeah.
And I wasn't that empathetic. If someone would complain about being hungry, it'd be like, you think you're hungry? Like, you should see what I'm doing over here. And you're still fat. Shut up. Whereas now I'm much more level-headed about things and willing to address it. And I give them some Ozempic and it's all sorted.
Yeah, Ozempic gratitude side. Yeah, it's actually quite a controversial topic we bring up with people regarding the GLP-1 agonists. Yeah, it's controversial in general. Not something I would do, but you can see the place.
That was mostly a joke, but I have had some clients use it.
No, I saw the opportunity to sort of get your thoughts on it. I'm like, why not? Because I've tried to bring that up with people before, and some people just like close you down. It's just like, no, we don't do that. And I'm like, well, I don't know. Like, is it different to any other PED? I don't know.
Place for everything.
Yeah.
Yeah,
from a pride perspective, I would never do it.
Yes.
That's just like accepting to myself that I can't hack it. Yeah.
So I've got that philosophical stance of this is bodybuilding. It's meant to be hard. If you can't tolerate hunger, don't do it.
Yeah.
But then I've also got the other stance where I'm like, well, we take all this other stuff. Like,
we got Glenn to bring up our BMR. We got Trent to retain tissue.
Yeah.
Like, is it really that different? It just takes away the suffering, which I think is
bodybuilding,
like, you're meant to embrace. It's an interesting one. But it's an interesting one because I reckon like there's a very large cohort of competitors who are utilizing it, but none of them will ever admit it.
Yeah, look, I mean, I've had a number of clients that have really, really struggled with hunger and adherence, utilize it, and all of a sudden they're just like prepping like champions. And getting far better outcomes as a result.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like we've got this tool, granted that it's not without side effects, like everything be utilized. Yeah. But again, a lot of those side effects are just because it's prescribed to morbidly obese people that just eat less junk food. So they lose copious amounts of lean tissue because they don't have protein. They lose bone mineral density. They lose all these things.
Yeah.
But whereas if you give it
being obese though, it's like a trade-off. It's like with any medication.
Exactly.
Like if it's a favorable. Just for anyone listening, when they do weigh up the side effects of these medications, in this example, they would weigh up, here's the risk factors of being obese, here's the risk factors of Retta and semaglutide. It's like that, So it's like, well, we're willing to accept these side effects because here their risk of heart disease is so high. So just for anyone listening, that's most meds.
Absolutely.
That's most meds. There's so no medication. It's funny because when a medication is prescribed by a doctor, people automatically assume it's safe. And it's like, no, it's not safe. It's just safe relative to the outcome of you not addressing that. Like blood pressure meds, they carry their own risk. But if your blood pressure is 170 over 100, that's a greater risk than the risk of arterial collapse from telmisartan.
Yeah, exactly. So,
yeah,
it's an interesting topic, but it's not something I actively push on people, because I come from the same background as you guys. That this is bodybuilding, and you should be able to survive the hunger. But for some people, I do think it is a tool that they can utilize and benefit from it.
I had one client use it. I won't give any details, gender, anything, but I said to them, when they suggested it, I said, you can use it, but just recognize I'm going to think you're a soft cock if you use it. And they were like, that's fine. And I was like, well, okay, but I'm judging you. And obviously you sort of support from there. It does depend on the context of the individual. Obviously, if you're dealing with someone who's a little bit less emotionally stable, I wouldn't approach it in that kind of manner. But this was a case where it was definitely not necessity. It was just trying to ease the process. And then the complaints of being lethargic, feeling like shit, feeling nauseous. And I'm like, I told you. But made it through, did well, so can't complain. But I guess we'll move on to the next point too. So I'm assuming your preference is bikini in terms of like passion and enjoyment of the category, or?
No, my preference is any hardworking individual that wants to be their best. Like that's what I get off on. Like I love working with people that are driven and motivated and have great work ethics. And if they come with talent as well, then that's even better. My ultimate job satisfaction doesn't really come from the placings. It comes from how far the client has come, I guess, in a way. Like it's great to get a pro card or something like that, but if you've got someone who's gone from poor health and poor self-esteem to stepping on a stage and mixing it up and being competitive, and they have transformed their life both in terms of health and confidence and things like that, it's incredibly rewarding stuff, which we get to be able to do. So that would be my preference. I think I think I'll probably just be in that bikini space for as long as I keep getting good results. So we'll see how long that lasts. But I coach anyone and everyone. Doesn't matter division, federation. I'm just happy to work with hardworking athletes.
It's like one of the things that I notice across the cohorts from males or female is I do find there's a lot more females are generally more grateful for I was discussing this with someone the other day. It might have been one of the boys, Jude it was, with females, irrespective of placing the outcome, generally they're very grateful for you in the process, provided everything's gone as well as it can, where males are much more heavily fixated on the outcome. And then as a result, that does impact the gratitude. And I do find on occasion, it's obviously not a one size fits all for myself anyway. Sometimes I find the females slightly more enjoyable because there is that is a greater sense of gratitude. And even like towards those tail end weeks, it's very much like this has been a great process. I'm excited. Where guys, I think this just comes down to a little bit of the pride concept too, because obviously generally males are more proud than what females are. There's a lot more stressing around the placing and the outcome as well. And that generally impacts the look too. Yeah,
I would agree. I think girls probably give the coaches more credit, whereas guys are more likely to, say, I did this, I did that, I won this, I won that. Whereas quite often the girls, it's almost embarrassing the amount of credit they'll give to me, certainly. And I'm sort of like, you know that you did this, right? Like I just provided the directions, but you drove the car. But they'll pretty much just give you all the credit. And it's sort of like, wow, okay. So it is different, absolutely. And I would agree completely with that sort of generalization that the girls are more grateful.
Do you ever get people make posts about you and you sort of like read it and you're just like, they're giving me too much here?
All the time.
Sometimes I can't even read them the first time. I'm like, I need to prepare myself to read this, because they just like give you this great spiel and it's awesome. And it's sort of like, God, I didn't deserve this much credit.
No, absolutely not. Like I feel, I don't know what percentage of success the coach is accountable for, but it's not more than sort of 10-20%, and the rest is the athlete. So it is interesting when you get all this credit. I couldn't have done this without you, and it's all like, I didn't really do much.
I just told you what to do. And it's insane. How have you found? Oh, you go. No.
This one's just a quick one anyway. One of the things that I found, because this was my third prep, But one of the things that was my biggest learning point, I think because I realized it within myself, and then I was able to reflect on all the clients I prepped, because I probably prepped like 100 clients in the last 2 years. But my experience being so different this time relative to others, and then looking back on all the athletes who I had do really well, is recognizing the success goes so far beyond just what you do. It's so heavily tied in with the stress management, the routine management, the mentality of the individual, etc. And I think that's something as well which a coach is highly responsible for, but obviously the clients take it on board, and something which people just don't acknowledge.
I agree
Just
completely.
keeping
Like,
that, yeah,
yeah,
like
the stress management's
yeah,
huge. Yeah, it's huge.
like the girl that I had do really well in Bikini, who you are aware of this season, and improve from those shows. I found the improvement from show to show, for example. So it was only a 3 week window where she looks like she'd moved forward 8 weeks, and her placings went from like seventh to second to the girl that placed second in the overall. The difference that I observed there was more when she started getting that recognition from like yourself, judging panels, people around her. It's like her psychology went from like so wired to like so calm, because she's like, I have this. And I think that was the difference in her moving forward, because process wise, not really a hell of a lot changed outside of me saying, you're getting a bit of heat here. There's a few people talking about you. I think there's some good potential to make some strides. And just that was a really good observation on my end, because I noticed as the stress came down and as she channeled in more to the prep, it's just like everything came naturally. Like if I wanted a kilo off in 5 days, the kilo came off in 5 days. Where if we went back to 9 weeks out, if I wanted a kilo off in 2 weeks, it was a scrap. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think a lot of alleviating the stress comes down to pushing them away from the outcome and pushing them back to the process. You know, like, are you doing everything possible? Then great. What more could you do? Like, if you're doing everything possible, if you're following the plan, if you're executing, I want you to take pride in that, and that is going to lead to the best possible outcome. Whereas if you fixate on the outcome, you create all this stress and this pressure. Let's just get back to doing what needs to be done, and the outcome will take care of itself. So that's a big part of my sort of coaching methodology for sure. And I think it certainly helps alleviate that stress.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like it drives back, like process over outcomes, the best thing you can do. And I feel like
the day by day.
But it's in that as well. I feel like if you get too caught up in the outcome, and then that's when people start jumping on other people's Instagrams and looking at other people, and that's when it does drive that stress, because it's like, fuck, am I good enough? And it's so hard in the sport as well, because it's like, especially being coaches, it's like we need to see every moving part, and it's like we're asking for photos and videos of you pretty frequently. And it's like, you're going to record those videos, send it to me, but you're still going to look at those and be like, fuck, it's like, what's he going to say? Or like, do I even look that good? Do I look any different today? Like, and I feel like that's also what makes it harder to be like, do we look at outcome versus process? Because through the process, it's still going to get challenging. You're still going to think of the outcome regardless.
Looking at other competitors is one of the things that I very much disagree with as well. I think as a coach, sometimes it's important to, when you're earlier on in the piece and just seeing who's winning shows, especially from, like, as we discussed before, to see evolution of categories and whatnot. But I've had clients who frequently look at competitors. I even had people constantly send me competitors that I was competing against. And I had a few weeks ago, I said to the guy, respectfully, mate, please don't DM me again. Like, I don't care who's there on the day. It doesn't change anything. But like, I've seen guys so caught up in it and they just psych themselves out. And funnily enough, the guys are looking at it. So, you know this, all of you know this. You're looking at these guys on social media, and you know what example I'm referencing here when I say it, James and Jude. Even backstage, you look at them, and then you look back on the stage photos, and it's like, you don't look good at all. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. I've even known coaches to do that, send their own clients pictures of their competitors in the hope to motivate them. It's the worst possible thing you can do. Like it's just a terrible strategy. Like
structure, sharpen, Photoshop.
Yeah, exactly right. Like, and I'm constantly saying that to my clients. Like, ignore the pictures on Instagram. Like you know, they're at the best possible angles at the best possible time and the best possible lighting. It's probably been touched up. The chances are they don't even look like that. And the chances are that there's some girl stressing over your recent Instagram pictures, which you've also filtered and manipulated. So it's sort of like, you know, like I just encourage them, just mute them. Like, just mute them. It's easy enough to do. Manage your stress. Like, there's means to get around this.
Hey, there's a catch-22 here for your For You page. It's either you're getting the other competitors that you're competing against, or you're getting constant photos and videos of food. So
burgers,
it's one or the other.
I often say to clients too, what you look like, because especially around, I find that 6 to 8 week out mark is when they start to get a little bit more caught up in other competitors. And I say, no one cares what you look like 6 weeks out. That's what you look like on the day. And it's not unusual to see guys or girls look awesome at 6 weeks out, look the exact same or worse on show day. And not only that, if we take into account getting a little bit deeper here, the amount of guys I saw miss their peaks this year, males in particular, you could look awesome at 3 days out. And I saw guys with blown out midsections on show day. And so you don't know what someone's going to look like when they get up there. And it's funny because I remember I was backstage at Adelaide and these guys are scoffing their faces with food. And then they're the exact same guys that are up there who had not a line in their midsection. And that's how easy it is for these photos to not be a reflection at all, even if they're accurate of how they look at the time of what's being presented.
Yeah.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. What were you going to say before, James?
No, I was just going to lead into like, obviously, so Scott, you had the first IFBB Pro in the Fit Metal division.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's right? Yeah, you had Charlie that won it.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, so I am currently referring.
I was like, I'm almost certain that was right.
No. Yes, I do refer to myself as the greatest fit model coach in the history of Australia.
It's true.
That's my title. So
yeah, but with the two divisions between fit model and bikini, do you have any, like, what was your approach or what is going to be your approach moving forward to differentiate between the two?
Look, none of us are an expert on the fit model division, including myself. Like, and it is going to continue to evolve, and it will probably be a little bit different next year than it was this year. So, what was my theory behind putting Charlie in that fit model division? Because she was going to do an ICN show the day prior to the IFBB Mix. That was her original plan. She was going to, do ICN bikini. And I just happened to show her photos one day to Tony Doherty. And I said, I'm thinking this girl could be a really good fit model. What do you think? And he looked at her and he goes, she's as good or better than any of the other ones I've seen. I was like, okay, cool. Let's put her in there. I knew she didn't have the muscularity to be a contender in bikini. She's got the beautiful structure. She's got, decent development and things like that. Like, I think she could have probably been on the edge of a first call out in a true novice division or something along those lines, just due to those natural genetic gifts. But I thought perhaps she was what the fit model division was looking for. And then it was just a case of, all right, what's the level of conditioning they're looking for? And they want, even tightness all over the body, but no striations, no vascularity, and not a tight glute hamstring tie-in. So we just aimed for that, and the judges rewarded it. So look, I'm not going to sit here and proclaim to be a guru at Fit Model when I've done one season of it, had an amazing client, and went into it going, Charlie, I don't know what's going to happen. You might be the best in the country, or you might come fourth in the novice at the VIX. Like, literally, I don't know, but we will see. I think you've got a good chance. Tony thinks that you fit the criteria, so let's just give it a crack. And turns out that she was exactly what the judges wanted. And even Tyler Mannion sort of called Tony and said, that girl's really good. We like her. So I guess that's, as far as we know, the benchmark for that division as it stands in Australia. Yeah. And I'll just continue to try and bring girls in that division in similar condition. And their proportions and structure is obviously going to be dependent on their development, their genetic gifts. And that's something that Charlie certainly has in spades.
Yeah. I was going to say as well, did you get, after she won that pro card, did you get many people reaching out to you for Fit Model?
Only a few, not that many. I still think the bikini division's the glamour division, but I have had a few fit model inquiries come through. Sure.
It's an interesting category because I don't think it's just not yet consolidated, so it's difficult for people to make that transition into the category.
I think they need a star. Like, I think they need a Miss Olympia.
They need a benchmark.
They need something, something which girls look to and think that's actually an awesome look. I would love to aspire to that, because we don't really have that at the moment. And there's plenty of that within the bikini division. So I think most girls are heading in that direction. And look, I've got some clients where I think they would be better suited in fit model than bikini. But if you tell them that, they'll be insulted by it.
It is an interesting one, because obviously preferentially bikini is preferential for me, just because obviously it's a little bit more black and white with the expectations. I do see the fit model as more of a stepping stone than anything else, because I do think it would be quite difficult to develop into it. And that takes away, because you see girls leave bikini because they reach a point where they just need to refine the physique, and it does take away from their ability to train and progress and whatnot. And I feel like it wouldn't be very difficult to move past fit model quite quickly if you were doing everything right. Yeah.
Yeah, I
And
agree. And I'm not sure that
yeah,
Charlie will remain a fit model forever. I mean, she wants
yeah,
to explore the fit model pro class,
of
but
course.
she's young. She's progressing fairly rapidly.
Yeah.
She doesn't want to hold back in terms of her progress,
Yeah.
and perhaps to fit the division. And maybe she's just at maintenance now. And that's
Yeah.
just not exciting for the athlete, So
Yeah, of
we'll
course.
see how she goes. She has intentions to jump in, almost the first handful of pro shows just to see where she stands, and we'll go from there. But yeah, she might move on to the bikini division in a couple of years' time. Who knows?
She wrapped up her season after the pro card, yeah? Or is she still going?
That's all she can do at this point in time. There are no pro shows for Fit Model.
Oh, really?
No, there's none established. They're still accumulating pros. Like they need to
Yeah,
have a
of
certain
course.
number of pros before they can start hosting pro shows.
Yeah.
So
I didn't think about yeah.
I'm waiting for Tony to get back from overseas, because he's overseas at the Pittsburgh and the New York show. So he's doing some reconnaissance mission over there and trying to find out from Tyler and all those guys what the plans are for that division and when the pro shows will start. And we will target the first handful of shows.
Yeah, so I'm assuming it's not going to be at the Olympia this year, yeah?
Won't be at the Olympia this year, no. But I think the intention will be to have a pro circuit so it can debut at the Olympia
I thought
next
when
year.
they announced that the intention was for it to be at the Olympia this year. When they first
yeah, but the thing is, if they don't have the pros for it, how can they have it at the Olympia?
Yeah, it's true as well.
Yeah,
but
it's a tough one.
There could be those bikini girls that have gotten pro cards in bikini that are like, oh fuck, maybe I actually fit better here.
I don't know if you can do that, can you?
Yeah.
And even in saying that, like, I don't think many bikini pros would be able to transition to fit model.
Oh, it depends though.
Yeah, unless it's a weak show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or an old pro, theoretically, who wants to re-engage in the industry, provided they've still got the registration. Because you lose registration after 3 years now, don't you?
Yeah, there's some new rule like that, yeah.
Yeah, so they just try to keep people in the system for as best they can. I've heard a couple of rumors that they're trying to introduce like a fit model for a male category. Yeah.
Look, it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, men's physique has reached a level now where the development isn't really introductory level.
No, definitely not. Yeah. You don't want it to, I don't want it to ever be introductory level. I love men's physique. I discovered it too late in life, actually.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's a great division, but I could see them slotting in a division below that.
It's just like, I guess it'd just be like what they did with Fit Model, where it's just like old men's physique, like what men's physique was.
Yeah, like, but even then, when you really think about old men's physique, it was probably only old men's physique for a couple of years, because by the time Bill and Dia and Sadiq were top two, they were quite big.
Yeah,
not big compared to today's standard, but they weren't small by any means. Just more attainable, but even then attainable. And then I remember there was a leak of what some of them are doing at that level, and it's like, oh, that's not attainable. Yeah, well, not attainable, but that's pushing it. Yeah, but I think the fit model's a nice little stepping stone.
Yeah, for
myself,
sure.
I do wonder. There's always going to be longevity of it, as provided the NPC IPB is involved, but longevity of like athletes remaining in that category for extended periods of time, I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see how it evolves. We'll see what it does to the other divisions as well, because traditionally when they bring in a new division, every other division sort of levels up a notch. But does this mean that bikini can be a little bit more muscular and harder, so you've got that clear delineation between the two criterias, and then does that push figure up another notch and wellness up another notch, and so on and so forth? It'll be interesting.
It's a tough one as well, I do think, from a bikini perspective as well, because if you do want to move, let's just say you do outgrow bikini, to move up to that next category, for example, the PED requirements escalate so significantly that you're almost stuck in no man's land to some capacity.
Yep.
Because I do get clients who say, I want to do wellness. And I say, I don't think you recognize what comes with wanting to do wellness. And as well, just not to go too far into this, because this is not something I want to discuss today, but and I'm sure you can agree with this, PEDs in females don't move the needle to the extent that they do in males without
risks
pushing it.
Yeah.
And well, not necessarily pushing it, but pushing risk, because you know that there's a fine line with that risk.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a difficult one, just the disparity between the different categories there. Yeah. I always found it interesting when girls say, I want to do PEDs. And I say, I don't think you realize they don't make the difference. Like, and even in males, you don't see that difference really sometimes. It's a long game, and we unfortunately don't have that long game in females without the risk of viralization. Yeah, unless you want to take the really long game, which would be like a HRT route, which is boring.
Yep.
But If you love it enough and you're happy to go 3, 4, 5 years, yeah, it can be done. But no one wants to hear, yeah, you're 5 years away from where you want to be.
No, no, it's
It's
the
never received
PEDs
well.
and female conversation is always a tricky one to navigate, and there's always it is very much higher risk to reward ratio than it is in men for certain.
Yeah, on an acute level at least.
Yeah,
and I do feel the conversation I typically have with females in those situations, I don't deal with a large amount of females on PEDs, but I always say to them, what you want now is potentially not what you'll want in 5 to 10 years. And the side effects that you will wear and have to bear the grunt of will likely linger. Conversely, to a male, who those side effects are going to be longer term, and side effects which do come longer term with a male, you reach a certain age bracket where, let's just say there were cardiac concerns. It's very, very difficult to distinguish whether that was a result of PED use or that was just a result of what was going to happen in their 50s, for example. Whereas a female with conception issues, a female with a deepened voice, a female with whatever else comes with it, that's going to present and that's going to stay, and it's going to be very obvious what's caused it. And then you're going to look back and say, was it worth it for a 3rd place in a regional show? Probably not. Yeah.
I think the flip side of the coin as well, from a hormonal perspective, is it's like as a female, you're taking a lot greater risk than a male that's on PEDs.
I think from a health perspective, males wear more risk, like genuine health.
Yeah, but there's also more. There's also more of a count, like hormonally, where it's like you get
hormonally,
50 plus, you get to 50 plus, and it's like,
but
well,
females
I'm just on TRT for life. Like, oh well, I'm doing a little bit of test, how many days a week. But with females, it's like, fuck, we have to sort of do the opposite, where how are we going to recover this properly? And it's like, can we even recover? Is it salvageable?
But from an endocrine perspective as well, I feel like with females and health, and I'm sure you see this too, Scott, dealing with so many females, like even just a natural athlete, you will see some females really cop it from an endocrine perspective and have long-lasting issues. And you got to think repetition of competition gets worse and worse. I had a female that was a pro in the natural feds last year who got a period on the day of the show. And she was beside herself. She was like, fuck, I knew this would happen. And she couldn't even hold her stomach in properly.
And again, it's very, very case by case. I've got some girls that can utilize PEDs and retain their cycle right up to a show. You've got others where it will just shut them down instantly. And you're absolutely correct. But I do think the endocrine system of the female is more delicate and prone to disruption. And it's a harder fix, because you try and address one thing and you create 2 or 3 other issues. The men are generally a lot easier to work with. And I mean, that's from my perspective, but that's even for dealing with a fertility doctor and things like that. When we were trying to conceive kids, we were going through a fertility doctor, and I remember saying to her, look, I've used all these steroids, this is this. And she literally went, guys are easy to fix, and just went straight to my wife. Like, she was just like, I'll just reboot you. I'll just pump you with HCG, HMG. You'll be fine. Like, shut up. I got to deal with this complicated person over here, your wife. So it's just a thing. Like the female endocrine system, there's a lot more moving parts. And if you mess with one, you mess with all of them. And unless you are an endocrinologist, you probably don't have any business even trying to fix it. Because I've had people approach me and say, are you an expert on female hormones? And I'm like, no, I am not. But I am probably better than the prep coach that claims to be an expert, because at least I recognize how many things are going on here, and I'm not arrogant enough to assume I can fix them and in the process make everything worse. So it's an interesting area, and I think one that is sorely undervalued, or that people don't have enough knowledge to even know how complex it is.
Yeah, and it's actually quite interesting, because I had a female the other day who's an older woman that I coached. It's a lifestyle client, and she sent me all her labs and she sent me a protocol for a HRT that she gets through an endocrinologist, and said, could I get your opinion on this? And I just said to her, no. Like, there's so many. I said to her, I've dealt with dozens of females on like endocrinologists prescribed HRT, and the combinations, the dosages, the moving parts is so different from person to person, that the only person who's going to really understand what you require here is the person who's knows the full picture. Because it's not just a case of chuck in 0.5 ml of test a week. You know what I mean? Like, or even like with HRT in females, like let's just say 3 milligrams testosterone per week, how that interplays with production on other spectrums is I've seen such different outcomes, especially from like an estrogen perspective. I've seen some come up with non-detectable estrogen. I've seen some come up with completely functional hormone panels on the exact same thing. Yeah.
Yep. So.
Yeah.
It's pretty. It's just it's like a rabbit hole as well.
It's not that straightforward, man. We've done a few podcasts on female PEDs, and I find it quite interesting, the lack of understanding, which is why I like talking about it. Because it's just the more awareness we can present around it, I feel like the better it's going to be. And the better it's going to be for swaying people away from that decision, because I think it is a very big decision for a female to make compared to a male. Yeah, just from a resilience perspective of the body and health. Yeah,
great.
And men, males can't be contained when they're 23 years old. You know how it is. 25-year-olds trying to tell them don't do this. All right, bro. Well, I'm going to do it anyway, so you might want to tell me. Yeah, yeah.
Wow. All right, sweet. I reckon we'll wrap up there anyway.
Thank you for jumping on. Sorry we went a bit wayward towards the end.
No, totally fine.
We appreciate you jumping on anyway. Hopefully some people get some stuff out of this. There's a lot to I guess unwrap too. But
it's nice
if you want
too.
If you want, do you have anything you want to plug? Anyone? I know you've started the podcast again.
Yeah, so we're doing myself and Luke Shembry are approached by Max's to rekindle the Max's Muscle TV days. Just in a podcast form. So we'll be recording another one of those in half an hour. But you can hit that up. But basically, if you want to know anything about me, it's the Team Goble Instagram page is the best way to see what's going on with myself and the team and all the athletes. That's the best way to ever get in contact with me.
Yeah, I was like, when I messaged you to jump on for the podcast, I messaged your personal page because I was like, fuck, I wonder if he gets someone to help run his socials. And I was like, and then he's not going to see it. So I was like, I'll just message his personal page and I'll see what happens.
Smart move, James. Yeah, I do absolutely pay someone to do that. And that was one of the
same as me, man. Yeah.
One of the best moves I ever made is just I am the figurehead of Team Goble, but I like to say I'm just a coach here because someone does the billing, someone does the admin, someone does the system, someone does the marketing. And it's really eased a lot of my stress as a result, and I can focus on what I'm good at. So, exactly right.
Yeah, thank you for jumping on.
Pleasure.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Take it easy, everyone else.